What would you do if the person you trusted the most, your partner of 30 years, tossed your life away like a used napkin? Imagine this. I'm Liz, standing in my dining room. The chandelier is on, my carefully prepared steak is cooling. My husband, Richard, looks at me with icy eyes and says, "You are too old. I want a divorce." He throws the ring on the table, and its clinking sounds like a gunshot. He is leaving me for Emily, a younger woman who laughs at my existence. I gave up my dreams for his ambitions, raised our daughter, built our home. Now he claims it's all his. But when I pour his wine down the drain, a spark flashes between us. He thinks I am broken, invisible. He is wrong. At that moment my struggle begins, struggle for my life, for exposing his lies and making him regret underestimating me. Let's go back to the day it all started. The dining room glowed under the crystal chandelier, its light splintering across the polished oak table. My fork hovered over a half-eaten steak, the smell of red wine sharp in the air. Richard sat across from me, his tie loosened, his eyes cold as the glass in his hand. I'd spent hours on this dinner hoping for a quiet evening, a rare moment to feel like a family again. The silence between us was heavy, like the weight of 30 years. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "You're too old, Liz," he said, his voice slicing through the quiet. "I need a new life." I froze, the fork trembling in my grip. "What are you saying, Richard?" He paced, gesturing with his wine glass. "I'm done. I want a divorce. Emily Crow, she's my future. You're my past." Emily. The name hit like a slap. I pictured her. Young, sharp, probably laughing at me right now. "After everything I've done for you?" My voice was steady, but my knuckles whitened around the fork. "Done." He laughed, a cruel edge to it. "You sat at home, Liz. I built this life. My money, my success." He yanked off his wedding ring and tossed it onto the table. It spun, clinking against the wood, a mocking chime. I stared at the ring, then at the family photo on the wall, me, Richard, Caitlin, smiling in better days. I'd given up my dreams for that smile, traded a journalism career for his ambition. "You can't just erase me," I said quietly. "Erase you?" He smirked, leaning closer. "You'll get nothing. Enjoy your little dinner." He grabbed his coat and stormed out, the front door slamming. The room felt smaller, the air colder. I stood, my legs unsteady, and walked to the sink. His wine glass sat there, half full. I poured it out, watching the red swirl down the drain. My reflection stared back from the window. Gray streaks in my hair, lines on my face. "Too old." His words echoed, but something else stirred. A spark, sharp and unfamiliar. I glanced at the photo again. Caitlin's smile, so like mine once. I'd call her tomorrow. She'd understand. But as I turned off the chandelier, the darkness settling, my thoughts hardened. Richard thought he'd won. He thought I'd break. He'd regret this. I stepped into the hallway, the ring still on the table behind me. Before you continue listening to this story, please click on the subscribe button. Let's get 1,000 subscribers by the end of this week. The leather steering wheel was cool under my palms as I drove toward New York, the radio humming softly. Rain streaked the windshield, blurring the city lights. Caitlin's apartment was my first stop. My daughter, she'd listen, she'd care. The sting of Richard's words still burned, but I clung to the hope of her support. The car smelled of leather and my lavender perfume, a faint comfort. Caitlin's building loomed ahead, all glass and steel, paid for by Richard's money. I took the elevator to her floor, my heart pounding. She opened the door, her phone already in hand, scrolling. "Mom," she said, barely looking up. "What's wrong?" I stepped inside, clutching my purse. The apartment screamed money, marble counters, a velvet sofa. "Caitlin, your father left me. For Emily Crow. I need you." She sighed, tossing her phone onto the couch. "Mom, you're outdated. Dad's with Emily now. She's his future." Her words landed like stones. I noticed a bracelet on her wrist. Delicate and new. "Not for me. Outdated." I echoed, my voice tight. "I paid for your college, your life. And you're choosing him." She shrugged, avoiding my eyes. "Emily's cool, Mom. They threw this party last week. Everyone was there. People laughed about you." Her smirk was a knife. I gripped my purse, my nails digging into the leather. A photo on her shelf caught my eye. Richard and Emily, arms around each other. My stomach twisted. "You're my daughter," I said, almost a whisper. "Grow up, Mom." She turned back to her phone. I left without another word, the elevator's hum drowning out my thoughts. Next, I drove to a cafe to meet Laura, my oldest friend. The place buzzed with chatter, the air thick with coffee and cinnamon. Laura was already there, stirring her latte, her smile too wide. Liz, you look rough, she said, leaning forward. Heard about Richard. Tough break. I sat, my hands steadying on the table. He's with someone else. I thought you'd. Thought I'd what? She laughed, a sharp sound. Save you? Liz, you didn't really think he'd stay, did you? You're nobody now. My chest tightened. I saw her glance at her phone, a message lighting up the screen. From Richard. You're my friend, I said, testing her. Friend. She smirked, twirling her spoon. Don't be dramatic. I pulled out my phone, pretending to check the time, and typed a note. Laura, gossip, Richard's ally. She didn't notice. I should go, I said, standing. I left my coffee untouched and hers unpaid, a small rebellion. Back in my car, rain pounded the roof. I deleted Laura's number, my fingers steady. In my notebook, I wrote, only me. Caitlin's bracelet, Laura's laugh. They'd underestimated me. I started the engine, the wipers clearing my view. I was alone, but that was enough. The city lights blurred as I drove on. The bedroom was dim, the lamp casting a soft glow over the photos in my lap. The air smelled of lavender, a faint trace from the sachet in my drawer. Old pictures. Me and Richard in the 90s, Caitlin as a toddler, my smile brighter then. I traced the edges, my fingers brushing memories I'd buried. Richard's betrayal, Caitlin's words, Laura's laugh, they fueled me now. I wasn't mourning. I was planning. I closed my eyes, and the past rushed in. 1995. I sat at our tiny kitchen table, my laptop open, drafting a pitch for a magazine. I'd been good, sharp, hungry. Richard came home, his suit crisp, his grin wide. Got a promotion, he said, tossing his briefcase down. Big case coming. That's great, I said, my fingers pausing on the keys. I'm pitching to the Post tomorrow. He laughed, not kindly. Your career? Liz, it's nothing compared to mine. I'm the star here. I blinked, stung. But I could. You're my support, he cut in, his hand on my shoulder. That's bigger. I closed the laptop. He'd promised gratitude, a shared life. I'd believed him. Back in the present, I shoved the photos into a drawer, keeping one, me, 25, alone, eyes fierce. That woman was still in me. I turned to the stack of Richard's financial documents on my bed. Old files I'd kept for years. Yellowed pages, his scrawled notes. I scanned them, my pen circling odd entries. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, a name, Crow. My pulse quickened. Something was off. I grabbed my phone and dialed Tom, an old colleague from my journalism days. Liz, he answered, surprised. It's been years. I need a favor, I said, my voice low. Know any good private investigators? He paused, then gave me a name, Mark Vance. He's discreet. Expensive but worth it. An hour later, I sat on a park bench, the air crisp, leaves rustling underfoot. Vance approached, his coat plain, his eyes sharp. What do you need? He asked, sitting beside me. Everything on my husband, I said, sliding an envelope of cash across. And he can't know. Vance pocketed it, nodding. I'll dig. You're sure? I met his gaze, my voice steel. Do your job. He left, blending into the crowd. I stood, tucking the documents into my bag, my step steady. The sun dipped low, painting the park gold. Richard, Caitlin, Laura. They thought I was weak, a relic. They were wrong. I walked to my car. The weight of my plan settling in. The cafe in suburban Connecticut was tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. Its wooden tables scuffed, the air thick with the scent of fresh coffee. I scanned the room before choosing a corner booth, my back to the wall. The hum of conversation felt like a shield. My fingers brushed the envelope in my purse, cash untraceable. I'd learned fast. No paper trails. The weight of my plan settled in my chest, not fear but a sharp thrill. Mark Vance slid into the booth across from me, his gray coat blending with the dim light. You're punctual, he said, his voice low. I don't waste time, I replied, sliding the envelope across. I need everything. Where Richard goes, what he buys, who he meets. Especially with Emily Crow. He opened the envelope, thumbing through the bills. Your husband's careful. This won't be cheap. Money's not the issue. I leaned forward, my voice steady. Just keep it quiet. Vance nodded, pocketing the cash. You'll hear from me. He left without another word, his steps silent on the worn floor. I stayed sipping lukewarm coffee, my eyes on the door. An overly curious waiter lingered nearby, wiping the same spot on the counter. I switched tables, my pulse steady. 3 days later, a package arrived at my new apartment, small, sparse, with a single cactus on the windowsill. I locked the door, drew the blinds, and opened the folder. Photos spilled out. Richard and Emily on a yacht named Emily, her laugh frozen in glossy print. Receipts followed. $20,000 for a diamond ring, $15,000 for a Paris hotel. My pen circled a line, wire transfer offshore account $500,000. Richard's handwriting sloppy, unmistakable. My stomach tightened. He wasn't just cheating, he was hiding something bigger. I grabbed my notebook, jotting Richard brags. That's his weakness. The yacht photo stared back, Emily's hand on his arm. I underlined another detail. Meeting with man in suit, Grand Central, 2 p.m. A lead. I filed the report in a small safe under my bed, the lock clicking shut. Control was mine again, piece by piece. Standing by the window, I watched the evening sky bruise purple. The cactus's spines caught the last light, sharp and unyielding. My reflection stared back, older, yes, but not weak. Richard thought he'd buried me. Emily thought she'd won. They were wrong. I turned from the window, my notebook still open. The kitchen in my new apartment smelled of garlic and basil, the pasta steaming on plain white plates. I set the table for two, my hands trembling just enough to sell the act. Caitlin was coming for lunch and I needed her to talk. My phone sat screened down by the wine bottle, its recorder ready. The room was modest, no chandeliers, just a bulb casting soft shadows. I smoothed my sweater, practicing a fragile smile in the mirror. The doorbell buzzed. Caitlin breezed in, her bright red dress screaming money, her perfume sharp. "Mom, this place is quaint," she said, dropping her purse on the couch. Her earrings glinted, new, probably from Emily. I poured wine, my voice soft.
"I'm struggling, Caitlin.
Your father left me with nothing. I need you to help me make sense of it." She rolled her eyes, sitting. "God, Mom, you're so dramatic. Dad's moved on. Emily's his future, and I'm on his side." She twirled her fork, barely touching the pasta. My chest ached, but I leaned into it, letting my eyes glisten. "I'm your mother. Doesn't that mean anything?" She laughed, sharp and cold. "Mother? You think Dad's leaving you a dime? He's rewriting everything. Assets, trusts, all for Emily." She sipped her wine, spilling a drop on the table.
No επάλεγει.
I nudged my phone closer, the recorder catching every word. "But I gave up everything for him," I said, my voice cracking just right. "For you. Whatever." She scrolled her phone, smirking. "You should have seen their last party. Everyone knew you were out. Emily's got style, Mom. You're just old news." I pressed my napkin to my eyes, hiding a glance at the phone. Still recording. "I just want to understand," I murmured. Caitlin stood, brushing crumbs off her dress. "You lost, Mom. Deal with it." She grabbed her purse and left, the door clicking shut. I locked it behind her, my hand steady now. Sitting, I played the recording. Her voice crackled. "He's rewriting everything. All for Emily. Clear, damning." I saved the file, labeled it Caitlin Evidence 1. In my notebook I wrote, "She's the weak link." I washed her plate, the water scalding, erasing her presence. The kitchen fell silent, the wine stain still on the table. Caitlin thought she'd crushed me. She'd handed me a weapon instead. I dried my hands, the recorder still warm in my pocket. The city buzzed outside my car, horns and footsteps blending into a dull roar. I checked the fake letter in my purse, bank logo, forged numbers hinting at Richard's hidden accounts. Emily was at Le Jardin, a ritzy restaurant downtown, all white tablecloths and truffle-scented air. A chance meeting was my play. I adjusted my scarf, my reflection in the shop window calm, calculated. Inside Le Jardin, crystal glasses clinked, the air heavy with wealth. Emily sat alone, her blonde hair catching the chandelier's glow. A new watch glinting on her wrist. Not new, I noted, scratched secondhand. I approached, clutching my purse. "Emily," I said, feigning surprise. "Didn't expect to see you here." She looked up, her smile venomous. "Liz? Still haunting nice places, I see." She leaned back, crossing her arms. "What do you want?" "Just lunch," I said, sitting uninvited. "How's life with Richard?" She laughed, loud enough to turn heads. "Life's perfect. I'm his future. You're just his dusty old past, Liz. A housewife clinging to scraps." My face stayed soft, but my pulse raced. "I'm happy for you," I lied, reaching for my water. My purse slipped, paper scattering. The letter landed near her plate. "Oh, I'm so clumsy," I said, gathering the rest. Emily's eyes flicked to the letter. She grabbed it, scanning the text. Her smirk faltered. "What's this?" she demanded. "No idea," I said, shrugging. "Bank stuff. Must have grabbed Richard's mail by mistake." The letter screamed fraud, fake transfers, secret accounts. She'd doubt him now. "You're pathetic," she snapped, but her fingers tightened on the paper. She tucked it into her purse, her eyes narrowing. Get out of my sight. I stood, my voice sweet. Enjoy your lunch. I left, not looking back, the restaurant's chatter fading behind me. Outside, I slipped into a quiet cafe across the street, the air warm with espresso. Sipping coffee, I watched Emily through the window. She was on her phone, her face tight, probably calling Richard. I jotted in my notebook, Emily doubts him. The letter was a seed, and I'd planted it perfectly. Tensions would crack their little empire. I stirred my coffee, the spoon clinking softly. The streetlights flickered on as I sipped again. The storage closet in my temporary apartment smelled of dust and old paper, the single bulb flickering overhead. I knelt among cardboard boxes, their edges soft from years of neglect. My fingers tore through tape, unearthing relics of a life I'd let Richard control. Bank statements, tax returns, a faded photo of us at a gala. I wasn't here for nostalgia. I was hunting. My mind slipped back to 1998. Our first house, a cramped colonial in Westport. I sat at the kitchen counter, a checkbook open, my parents' inheritance. $200,000, ready to fund Richard's law firm. This is our future, he'd said, his hand over mine. Your money's our money, Liz, but I decide where it goes. I want to know the details. I'd pushed, my pen hovering. He'd laughed sharp. Don't meddle. This is man's work. I signed the check, my jaw tight, trusting his promises. He'd kissed my forehead, but his eyes were on the paper. Now in the closet I found what I needed. A folder of contracts yellowed with Richard's scrawl. One caught my eye, a deal with a company called Horizon Ventures, dated 2005. Payments to an offshore account. No clear purpose. I cross-checked it against the detective's report. Horizon appeared again, linked to Emily's name. My pulse quickened. I grabbed a red marker, circling discrepancies, my hands steady. I dialed Sarah Klein, a financial crimes attorney Tom had recommended. I have something, I said, my voice low. Can we meet? Her office was in Stamford, all glass and steel, the desk gleaming under a panoramic view of the city. I spread the contracts before her, pointing to Horizon. This isn't right, I said. He hid this from me. Sarah adjusted her glasses, scanning the pages. This is promising, Liz. Offshore accounts, vague terms, it smells like fraud. We can use this. Enough to bury him? I asked, leaning forward. She smiled, thin but confident. Enough to make him sweat. He's not as untouchable as he thinks. I handed her the detective's reports, my recordings of Caitlin. There's more. He's been sloppy. Good. She stacked the papers. This could get loud. You ready for that? I want him to lose everything, I said, my voice steel. Driving home, the city lights blurred past, my folder of contracts on the passenger seat. I'd been invisible to Richard, a prop in his life. Now I held the truth sharp as a blade. He'd never see me coming. The car's engine hummed as I turned onto my street. The elevator to Sarah Klein's office smelled of leather and polish, the hum of its ascent steadying my nerves. I clutched a thick folder, detective reports, Caitlin's recorded betrayal, those damning contracts. My heels clicked on the marble floor as I stepped out, my reflection in the glass doors sharp, focused. This was war and I was armed. Sarah's office was sleek, the air heavy with the scent of leather chairs and fresh ink. She stood as I entered, gesturing to a chair. Show me what you've got, Liz. I spread the evidence across her desk. Photos of Richard and Emily, bank receipts, my underlined contracts. This is everything, I said. Caitlin's recording confirms he's rewriting assets. The contracts hint at fraud. She flipped through the pages, her pen tapping. This is gold. The offshore accounts, the vague company names he's exposed. Will hit him hard in court. Will it stick? I asked, my fingers brushing the folder's edge. Oh, it'll stick. She leaned back, smirking. Richard's about to meet his karma. I nodded, my chest loosening. He thought I'd roll over. Big mistake. After, I drove to the bank, a sterile building with a marble counter that gleamed under fluorescent lights. The clerk, a young man with a nervous smile, hesitated when I asked for account records from 5 years back. Those are archived, ma'am, he said, glancing at his screen. Find them, I said, my voice firm. Every transaction tied to Richard Morgan. He typed, the printer whirring. Minutes later, he handed me a stack of printouts. I scanned them in my car, my breath catching at a transfer. $300,000 to a Cayman Islands account, dated last year. No explanation, just Richard's initials. My pen circled it, my hand steady. Another piece of the puzzle. Back at my apartment, I practiced in front of a mirror, my voice calm but firm. I didn't know about the accounts, I said, meeting my own eyes. He controlled everything. Sarah had warned me. Richard would paint me as complicit. I'd be ready. In a quiet cafe later, the air warm with espresso, I reviewed my notes. The wooden table was scarred, grounding me as I jotted. Cayman account leverage. I tucked the bank printout into my safe, the lock clicking shut. Richard and Emily were oblivious, living their lavish lie. They'd never suspect how close I was. I sipped my coffee, the cup warm in my hands. The mirror in my apartment caught the shimmer of my black dress. Elegant but understated. I slipped my phone into my clutch, its screen glowing with a draft. Laura Bennett's leaking Richard Morgan's business deals to his rivals. Check her text. I'd sent it to key guests at tonight's gala. Anonymous, untraceable. Thanks to a burner app Mark Vance had suggested. Laura's betrayal of me would cost her. The gala was in a downtown loft, all glittering gowns and jazz drifting through the air. The scent of champagne hung heavy, glasses clinking like soft bells. I spotted Laura near the bar, her laugh too loud, her sequin dress catching every light. My phone buzzed. Guests were reading my message. Whispers spread, heads turning. Laura's smile faltered as a man in a tux stepped back from her. Is it true? He asked. His voice sharp. You're selling Morgan's secrets? That's a lie. Laura snapped, her hands flailing. Who's saying this? Her glass tipped, champagne splashing her dress. I approached, my face soft with fake concern. Laura, what's wrong? You look upset. She spun on me, eyes wild. Don't play innocent, Liz. This reeks of you. Me. I tilted my head, sipping my drink. I'm just here for the canapés. A woman nearby snorted, turning away. Laura's face reddened, her allies slipping into the crowd. She stormed out, heels clicking. I poured her abandoned champagne into a potted plant, the liquid pooling in the soil. One less enemy. Later, my phone rang as I stood in my apartment. Laura's voice was shrill. You did this, Liz. You ruined me. Laura, calm down, I said, my tone ice. I don't know what you're talking about. You're a snake, she screeched, then hung up. I smiled, setting the phone down. The loft's lights had dimmed in my mind, replaced by the city's glow beyond my balcony. I stepped outside, the cool air brushing my skin. My notebook lay open, a new line added. Laura neutralized. She'd gossiped about my downfall, laughed with Richard. Now she was the outcast. A star streaked across the sky, brief and sharp. I raised my glass to it. The storage closet was a cramped cave, its air thick with the scent of old wood and dust. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, dancing over stacks of cardboard boxes. Tomorrow was the court date and I needed every edge. My fingers brushed a metal box, rusted at the edges, tucked behind a pile of Richard's old law books. My heart skipped. This wasn't an accident. I dragged it out, the scrape of metal loud in the silence. The lock was flimsy, yielding to a hairpin after a few twists. Inside, a single letter yellowed with Richard's jagged handwriting. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Keep this quiet, it began, detailing a plan to funnel money to an offshore account. A line jumped out. Emily mustn't know. My breath caught. This was it, the key to unraveling him. I sat back, the flashlight beam trembling. The letter was dated 3 years ago, before Emily, before the divorce. Richard had always hidden things, keys, accounts, truths. I whispered to myself, is this really it? The paper smelled of ink and betrayal. I called Sarah Klein, my voice low. I found something big. Can you meet now? Get here, she said, no questions. Her office was a short drive, the city lights streaking past. The room smelled of coffee, papers stacked high on her desk. I handed her the letter, my pulse racing. Read this. Sarah's eyes scanned the page, widening. Good God, Liz, this is a jackpot. Offshore schemes signed by him? He's done. Can we use it tomorrow? I asked, leaning forward. Oh, we'll use it. She made a copy, her hands quick. This could ruin him. You're sure it's authentic? It's his writing, I said, my voice steel. I lived with it for 30 years. I left, a copy of the letter tucked in my bag. Back in my apartment, I stood by the window, the city a sea of stars below. The metal box sat empty on the floor, its secrets spilled. I'd locked the past away, but now it was my weapon. Richard thought he'd outsmarted me. Tomorrow he'd learn otherwise. The stars blinked as I turned from the glass. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale air, the hum of the air conditioner a low drone. I sat straight, my hands folded, my notepad blank but ready. Across the aisle, Richard lounged in a tailored suit, whispering to Emily, her bright dress a splash of arrogance. They laughed, their eyes flicking to me, smug. I met their gaze, my face calm, my heart steady. They had no idea what was coming. Sarah stood, her voice clear. Your Honor, we present evidence of financial misconduct by Richard Morgan. She laid out the detective's reports, The recording of Caitlin's betrayal. The judge nodded her pen-scratching notes. Richard smirked, leaning back unfazed. These are fabrications, Richard snapped when his turn came. She's after my money, always has been. Sarah didn't flinch. Is that so, Mr. Morgan? Then how do you explain your offshore dealings? Or perhaps a certain document we've recently uncovered? Richard's smirk vanished. His face paled, his hand jerking to his tie. Emily froze, her phone slipping to her lap, water spilling from her glass. I gripped my pen, the plastic biting into my palm, a silent weapon. Caitlin, in the back row, looked away, her face tight. The air thickened, the judge's gaze sharpening. What document? Richard's lawyer demanded, his voice rising. Sarah smiled, holding a folder unopened. We'll get to that tomorrow, Your Honor. It's illuminating. The judge adjourned, the gavel's crack echoing. Richard whispered frantically to his lawyer, his hands shaking. Emily avoided his eyes, her fingers twisting her ring. I stood, tucking my notepad away, my steps measured. Sarah caught my arm, her whisper warm. He's cracking. Outside, the corridor was cold, my heels clicking on the tile. I breathed deep, the folder in my bag heavy with promise. Richard thought he'd won before the fight began. Emily thought she'd replaced me. They were blind to the storm I'd built. The courthouse door swung shut behind me. The courtroom was a held breath. The silence sharp as the judge's gavel rested. I sat, my hands still, my eyes on Sarah as she rose. Richard slouched across the aisle, his confidence frayed, Emily rigid beside him. Caitlin sat in the back, her face pale, her hands knotted. The air smelled of lacquer and tension, the wooden benches creaking under restless weight. Sarah held the letter aloft, her voice steady. Your Honor, this document, written by Richard Morgan, details a scheme to hide assets offshore, defrauding his wife and the court. She read aloud, each word a hammer. Transfers, secret accounts, Richard's own signature. A bank seal gleamed on the page, undeniable. Richard lunged forward, his face red. That's a fake. She forged it. The judge's glare silenced him. Sit down, Mr. Morgan. I've seen enough. Sarah continued, laying out the detective's reports, Caitlin's recording, the Cayman transfers. The evidence piled like stones. Richard sank into his chair, his hands gripping the table. Emily stood, her purse falling, and stormed out, her heels a furious staccato. No ring on her finger, I noted, my lips twitching. The judge spoke, her voice final. The court finds Richard Morgan guilty of financial fraud. Elizabeth Morgan is awarded the majority of the marital assets. Richard shouted, his voice cracking. This is robbery. His lawyer pulled him down, hissing warnings. Caitlin ran forward, tears streaming. Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I turned, my voice ice. You made your choice, Caitlin. Live with it. She crumpled, sobbing, but I walked past, my spine straight. Outside, the air was crisp, the city alive. I drove to my new house, a modest colonial with white walls and the clean scent of fresh paint. The key in my hand was cool, new mine. I stepped inside, sunlight spilling across the hardwood. A single flower, a daisy, sat on the table, a note from Sarah. You did it. I'd dreamed of a home like this, years ago, before Richard laughed at my ambitions. Now it was real. I tossed the old house key into the trash, its clink a farewell to chains. The letter, the evidence, the years of planning, they'd led here, to freedom. On the porch, I gripped the railing, the sun warm on my face. A new life stretched before me. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like this video and click on the subscribe button. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of the week, so that as many people as possible can learn about this story. We also recommend listening to our previous story. It is even more shocking. Just click on the box on the left to play it. Thank you for watching.